Today I am going to talk about a topic on review of literature, how to articulate a review of literature under the course called Research Methodology. Review of literature, the word itself will give you a meaning, review of the literature, okay. So if you look at the literature, it has two components. One is the theory part. The other one is the research findings of other earlier researcher who did the research. So as a researcher, we need to first tries to understand the theoretical framework that consists of theories basically that support your study. So all your theories you need to really review pertaining to your focus of your study. At the same time, as a researcher, he will be reviewing the existing research articles or other forms of research work by other researchers pertaining to your area of study which supports your research. So, in this context, I am going to have a lot of discussions about how to articulate a review of literature. Okay. Now, let us understand what is the difference between theory and research. Theories are formulated to explain, predict, and understand a phenomena, and in many cases to challenge and extend existing knowledge within the limits of critical bounding assumptions. First of all, we should know a theory has evolved from various research findings, and repeatedly that findings gives you a definite outcome. So once the outcome has been proven, then it becomes transformed into a theory. So the outcome is definite. In every context you do the research, the outcome remains the same. So that's the way it is a generalization of your research findings. Now let's also understand what is a theory, how it is going to contribute to your review of literature writing. If you look at that, a theory should be supported with research articles, research findings of earlier researchers in order to build your theoretical framework, in order to support your theoretical framework, in order to substantiate your theoretical framework, whatever you claim, which give focus to your area of study. Research is conducted basically to test the theory, and the theory is amended based on the research findings. That's the way we try to differentiate between a theory and a research. So look at the steps for creating a good theoretical framework. How we can able to develop a good theoretical framework. And don't forget that your theoretical framework should support your problem statement, your research questions, your research objectives, all that. And ultimately that should reflect your area of focus. So, first step for creating a good theoretical framework is that based on your area of focus, first search for theories. of other people that relate to your area of focus. For example, when you talk about motivation, you are studying an area called the motivation. You want to understand the motivation level of employees. There are a lot of theories uh, which gives you an idea about what is motivation. So in that context, as a researcher, he has to accumulate, he has to review all the relevant theories. For example, Maslow theory of hierarchy or Herzberg two-factor theory, all this theory which is going to contribute to the level of understanding of motivation has to be properly reviewed and evaluated. Once after evaluated, as a researcher, he has to synthesize the relevant theories uh, which is going to substitute his area of research. Next one is, once you have identified the theories relevant to your study, try to summarize the theories as they relate to your area of focus. So how we can able to summarize the theories? So first one is, find information on theories or about the theorist who developed that theory related to a topic from. And you can gather information about those relevant theory to your area of study from the friends, from teachers, from experts, or from the internet, or books, journals, articles, and also there are certain sources like a lot of database providers which will facilitate the relevant consolidation of theories. For example, like you can really go for EBSCO database, which accumulate a lot of articles or theories relevant to your study. So next one is the record the references. Okay, whenever you take the theory, you have to cite those theories. Without citation, what happened? It is called considered to be plagiarism. So you need to really cite that information. We all know that if you anything more than two lines, if you cut and paste without quote, then it is considered to be plagiarism. There is a lot of rules and regulations pertaining to plagiarism, and all the researcher has to be aware about the implication of plagiarism. So in order to avoid that, it is ethical that you're supposed to cite others' work with a definite format. So whenever you cite the other's work, the American Psychological Association has given certain format of recording the information pertaining to that particular theory. In later part, I'll be explaining how to record and what kind of informations content we supposed to record and capture, and how to write the reference format. I'll be explaining you shortly. So we were explaining about the process of summarizing the theory. So first step, like read the theories of others first. As I was earlier mentioning that as per the APA format, record the reference information appropriately as given in the APA guideline. Next one, summarize each theory, okay, because you will be reviewing so many theories pertaining to your research area. So if you are collecting so much of information pertaining to your theory, which is really going to add value to your research, then you need to accumulate and synthesis all those information which relates to your topic. So I'll be explaining you about how to capture those information using the theory worksheet. So now I think the learners has to give more importance to this particular section, how to summarize the theory information here. So how to prepare this worksheet, and definitely as long you have your access to MS Office using Excel sheet, you can create these kind of worksheet on your own, and you can review the theories which you have used for your research. So let me read out what are the steps involved here. First one is copy the references exactly from left to right from the reference worksheet onto your reference page. Make sure that you copy every comma, durations and other informations precisely. Use your computer to make a hanging indent and put the reference into alphabetical order. It's very important. So make sure there is no missing information is in your review process. So again, given if you look at this worksheet, the first column here. So let me show you the first column. So if you look at this first column, so you are referring to a theory written by different authors. So try to capture the name of the author. You can see here. I think the laser mark will tell you the first column is trying to capture the first author which really contribute in the development of this theory. Next one, if you look at the second column, you need to capture the author's name. First of all, whenever you capture the author name, the last name has to be captured first and with the respective initials. Next one, if you look at the third column, you can see here the third column here, year of publication. So that's very important, because if you try to put the theory in a chronological order, so as a researcher, that gives you confidence for other readers that you are properly reviewed the theories relevant to your area of focus, and it builds you a credibility on your research work because of the fact that you really reviewed the number of years, like from last 20 years or 30 years of theories on this particular area of study has been properly reviewed, and the significant study has been cited for your research work. So that year of publication plays a crucial role in writing your theory summary. Next one is you need to write the title of the article in the theory worksheet. So let's look at the title of the article here. So write the title of the article, or what the book talks about. What is the title? And where this theory is reflected, which journal it has been reflected. Okay, title of the journal you can write here. So you can write here the title of the journal. At the same time, if it is the theory has been taken from any kind of textbooks, edited textbooks, you can also write the edited book name. So similarly, like the author, first initial, second initial, and last name has to be clearly recorded as mentioned here. And the next column talks about the publication, the publisher. Information has to be recorded. So what is the city of publication or state or name of the publisher, like Tata McGraw-Hill, or you know different kind of publishers name can be recorded here, and I quoted an example here. Next one, if suppose the theory has been recorded taken from the internet, so make sure the retrieved month, date, and the URL from where you have accessed from the internet has to be clearly recorded here, so that this worksheet will gives you an idea. And after during the process of compiling your review of literature section and reference writing section, this matrix, I mean this worksheet, is going to really contribute in writing your reference and capturing your cited information. So you can see how this, using this above compartmentalized information, how this has been written as per the APA format, I mean the American Psychological Association guidelines format has been well taken for writing this cited information. Next one, we need to really build on the theory summary worksheet. Okay, so in the theory summary worksheet, let us compartmentalize into 3 columns. First one is, the first column talks about the author and year. The next one about the title and page number, all that. The third one is the page number. Okay. So whenever you capture the information about the theory which is going to contribute to your research area, so make sure you try to describe and explain the theory. So the first row, you try to describe and explain the theory. So you can see here. So tell the reader who's, what, and why this theory is all about. And in the next row, how this particular theory connects to your area of study. That has to be clearly synthesized and evaluated based on your review information. You need to articulate how this particular theory connects to your study. Next one, we have examples. If you really want to add value to your discussion on how this theory connect to your study, give some examples so that the reader will understand perfectly. Clear? So make the reader understand perfectly. Next one, then the next row also talks about the other interesting informations, anything you would like to quote along with this theory which is relevant to your research study. So you have any other interesting information, please make sure you try to put it across so that that will add value, so the reader of your whoever review your theory will appreciate that. Next one, is there any other quote? Optional. That is optional. If there is any quote by the theorist, try to put it here to add more value. So hope you understand how a particular theory taken from a textbook or an article has been clearly summarized using this worksheet. So this has to be put it in an Excel sheet in a soft copy format, or you can also physically do in a hard copy also, but it involves a lot of paperwork. Let's work on paperless using MS Office Excel format. Okay. So before we go on to the next slide, I would like to, give you again an summary or a brush up on what is actually we are doing here. We are doing what we need to understand here about literature review. So let me give you another way of defining what is literature review. A literature review is a comprehensive summary of a previous research on a topic. The literature reviews survey scholarly articles, books, and other sources relevant to a particular area of research. The review should enumerate, describe, summarize, objectively evaluate, and clarify this previous research. So, as a researcher, whenever we try to write literature review, make sure uh, we take information on the theory from different sources. Don't only dependent on textbooks. Go for internet sources. So many database publishers database are available, and now I think we have Google Scholar. From Google Scholar, Social Science Research Network is available. EBSCO has their own database company, and also if you look at the abroad UK-based publisher, they have their own database. Mendeley is there. That it's a great software where it accumulates all the theories and articles. Um, it is also a database company, and also there is one more database organizer that is called ProQuest, in which you can download articles, textbooks, and also especially ProQuest dissertation. That gives you a lot of information on the earlier dissertation pertaining to your research area. So once you go through all this, I'm definite that you'll get a great amount of knowledge. Um, and after getting that great amount of knowledge, you're supposed to enumerate that. Okay, you have to prioritize that, and you have to describe how relevant to your research area. And as I was earlier explaining, using the summary worksheet, theory summary worksheet, you have to summarize that, and and all your theories has to objectively, in the sense that there should be a connect between your research objective and the theory, so that it tries to connect the theory relevant to your research area, and try to evaluate which one is contemporary, which one is relevant, why it is relevant to this context, how it is relevant in terms of methodological relevance, in terms of respondent relevance, in terms of uh, statistical technique relevance. So you need to connect that, and you have to evaluate, whereby you need a great amount of research methodology knowledge to clarify using your synthesis of information and citing the previous research. So till now we were talking about steps for creating a good review of research by looking at the theories. Now let's look at the steps for creating a good review of research based on articles. I mean, you all know that an article is an information finding which has been done previously by the earlier researcher, which should be relevant to your area of your study. So first step is that search for research articles done by others on your topic. I think searching the research article, I think now you have the facility of Google Scholar, Social Science Research Network, Mendeley software, and other forms of database usage tools, whereby it will precisely capture the keywords whenever you key in. That will really um, tries to, the web will crawl that relevant information and take you to that research area. So next one is the form of so once you accumulate and collect all the research articles, the next foremost step, this is a very important step, okay, in review literature review writing. So the learners may I require your great attention on this part especially. So this is similar to the theory literature matrix. We are also going to form a literature matrix to find the important themes and variables. Okay. Whenever I talk about uh, you know literature matrix, I was mentioning about variables. So variables is nothing but the specific component which really has to be studied in addressing your research problem. So sometimes an accumulation of all these variables and dimensions, it leads to a formation of a construct. For example, when I talk about service quality, it's a construct whereby it has few dimensions. I was mentioning about empathy, and also I was mentioning about you know convenience. So these are the dimensions in a construct called service quality. Hope you understand. Service quality is a construct. Under that construct, you have certain dimensions. For example, first one is empathy, the other one is reliability, the other one is convenience. So when you talk about these dimensions, under each dimensions you have what do you call variables or statements or items. Interchangeably, all these words will be used. So you need to locate those variables. For example, under convenience, convenience is a latent variable, latent construct, latent dimension. So under that latent dimensions, the variables such as, for example, let us talk about we are evaluating the service quality of a bank. So under convenience, let me put one more variable, that is the bank operates 24 hours in a day. So that's a variable. The second variable, like the bank also opens on Sundays to make the customer happy. So that gives you convenience. So hope you understand with this example what is the construct and what is dimension. Under each dimension you have certain variables. Okay. So I was earlier mentioning about the search for research articles from various database company. I mentioned here repeatedly. I was insisting about EBSCO, Emerald, ProQuest. Additionally, I was also mentioning about Google Scholar, SSRN, which is called Social Science Research Network. So from there, the relevant articles you have to collect using your research discretion. Once you collect those articles, you have to completely go through from the complete all the pages. You have to really scrutinize with the research lens, with the research mind. So how do you summarize the entire article? So I'll be giving you some tips, what you should look in a research article. First one is, who did the research? So I was asking you to record the author information about the author, year of publication, the page number, article title, the journal name. All that has to be recorded so that the reader will understand who did the research, because there are certain eminent researcher has to be cited in your research literature review process, so that when you talk about service quality, if I don't cite the work of Parasuraman or Zaithmal or Berry, I think I have not properly reviewed my literature during the process of learning service quality literature. So like that, the first component, who did the research, is very important. Next one, what was the research study about? What did the researcher do? Actually, what is the contribution? What is his exact, study talks about? So that component has to be clearly evaluated, and it has to be synthesized, and the information has to be really captured for our research. Uh, in the process of developing our research framework, this information is very important. So next one is, when you talk about also when the research is done, okay, so the relevance, the time period is very important, the duration is very important. If it is like, sometimes what happen, so now let's, okay, I can quote like, we are talking about digital disruption. So, excuse me, I was talking about digital disruption. If I was quoting information which is like 10 years back, sometimes that information become obsolete. So, so when actually the research has been done, where, which topography, which geography, do we have a connect between our area of research area, I mean that topography, with that the researcher's topography, where and who are the respondent, what is the population, what are the samples, so where was the study performed, all that has to be really captured. Next one is, why was the research done? What is the focus? What is the objective? Why the research is done? For what purpose? Like, which research question this is going to really answer? That has to be analyzed here. Next one, the last section of any article will have the conclusions. I mean the findings, conclusions, and recommendations and implications. These are very important area. As a researcher, whenever we review an article, it has to be analyzed properly. I mean synthesized properly, and the critical information has to be recorded here. So what were the findings and conclusions of the study pertaining to your research area has to be captured. And dear learners, I think whenever you review a research article, make sure who, what, when, where, whom, why, and finally the findings and conclusions of the study has to be analyzed. Now, this is an important component. It's an exercise here. As a learner, you are supposed to do this exercise so that you will understand physically you will understand. You can able to demonstrate how a literature review summary worksheet has to be developed. So if you look at that, this worksheet, um, like earlier theory worksheet, we have author, year. Next one, I have given you describe the study, who, what, when, where, and purpose of the study. I was mentioning earlier, what is the purpose of the study? That is why component here. And what is the specific findings relevant to our research area. Next, any other optional, I mean the other interesting information or any other code pertaining to our research area has to be recorded here. So once you have this summary worksheet accumulated during the process of writing your literature review, it will be really helpful in bringing up a great quality literature review work. So here I have given you a sample literature review summary worksheet. So let me explain you this. Okay, so if you look at this slide here, describe study, who, what, when, where. So I have given you an example here. You can see this example, two cohorts of 7th and 8th graders that participated in the project units are compared with the remainder of the district population using results from high-stakes state standardized test in science. So it's very clear here. Next one, the purpose has been articulated here. So the purpose of the study was to examine the effort of one component of a systematic reform effort in the Detroit public schools and was centered on a highly specified and developed project-based inquiry science unit supported by aligned professional development and learning technologies. So if you look at the read the statement, it's clearly articulate the purpose of the study. So that's the way you have to synthesize the information from earlier research article. So next one is we talk here about the capturing the information of the findings from earlier research articles. So when you record that information, so here both the initial and scaled up cohort shows increase in science content, understanding and process skills over the peers and significantly higher pass rates on the statewide test. Examination of results by gender reveals that the curriculum efforts succeeds in reducing the gender gap in achievement experienced by urban African American boys. So see, if I run this finding information of any plagiarism tool like Turnitin, it won't capture me. It won't, capture the synthesized information. Why? Because I have not cut and pasted any information. I have properly reviewed the article and I have taken the real insights from the article and synthesized that information. So that's why I repeatedly telling you synthesis of the article is very important, for which you need to n number of times you have to read the articles to understand the relevant appropriate information pertaining to our research area. So hope you all understand how to put those article information in the literature review summary sheet. Next one, make a literature matrix with all of the research studies you found. Okay, so for example, you have 50 number of research articles. So and each article has n number of variables. So all these variables has to be put it across in the literature matrix. And once you put that information in your literature matrix, then you can find out a pattern among these variables. And you can group these variables into a specific dimension. And based on that dimensions and the connect between these dimensions, you can develop your own research model. That's why this literature matrix exercise is very important for a researcher. So as usual, write the author title down the first column, write variables that are considered in the studies across the top. Start with the main variables and then continue adding if new one arises. And I was mentioning about look for patterns. This is very important for any researcher because of the fact that tomorrow the panelist may ask you what is your contribution. Okay, so already the research has been done and they may ask you what is your contribution. In that context, if you are able to develop your own exclusive research model which is valued by the research community, then the process of exercising the patterns, looking for patterns will help you and facilitate your research into a quality one, original one. It contributes to your novelty. Choose your strongest and most important variables, and after that summarize their importance, why it is important, what is the significance, what is the connect with your research area, so how it is going to contribute to your research. All that has to be given inputs while you articulate your summary of your literature. So the literature matrix has been given here. So if you look at that author title, all that APA information here, all that has to be captured in the first and second column. In the second column we have given year, and if you want you can add more columns so that you can also take the publisher journal title, all that information you can capture. And if you look at that elementary school, socio-cultural pattern, English, all these are considered to be variables here. So if you look at the literature review matrix, the variables will keep on growing. Okay. So if you look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So like this, the variables will be keep on growing. So you are trying to accumulate many variables. So the next section here is that whenever you capture the variables, write variables that are considered in the studies across the top. Start with the main variables first and then continue adding if new one arises. Okay. So like this, if you look at the column here, first column here, the year. So like this, the rows will be growing as well as the column also growing because more variables getting accumulated and reviewed. And you make sure if the first article and the second article, or if you look at in this example here, see if you look at this, the second article and third article, these two authors really talks about elementary school variable. So in that context, you put tick or a mark here so that mark an X under the variables that were considered in each study. So mark that. So each study have really used these two variable called elementary school. So the second article and third article really used the variable called elementary school. So that I tell you why we are doing this. So if you are able to do that, you can prioritize the variable. That's very important. So if you have more marks here, if you look at that elementary school got more marks. Ticks here. It means that it is the number one prioritized variable that should be incorporated in your conceptual model, the research model. It should not be left. So this literature matrix will help you to really prioritize the variables and the significance of the variables. Hope through this exercise how we are going to capture the significant variable with the simple literature matrix exercise. Really we have learned that. The next component here is look at those matrix and look for patterns. What patterns are there? What variables are considered by most? And most of the studies, which variable they are focusing? What are the few studies which are focusing on certain variables? Which study consider each variable? Like that, you try to probe more questions here and try to look for patterns here. Look at the year of studies. Which studies came first for that variable? Okay, so in a chronological order, based on the year, you can really locate which studies came first for that variable, followed by the next article and the next variable. So like that, we have highlighted that. Next one, once you have completed this literature matrix exercise as a researcher, quickly write 1 to 2 sentences about the importance of each variable. How this variable is important, significant, and how it is relevant to your area of study. How it is going to contribute or support your research. This is very important. Based on all the research studies regarding that variable, we need to articulate. This will help you later with your introduction to that variable within your review of related literature. So, along the process of steps for writing a review of related literature based on your area of focus, uh, we supposed to using that literature matrix input. I am going to show you how to make a clustered diagram of theories and research read based on the most important variables from your literature matrix. So that gives you an outline, the paper, draft the paper from your outline, revise, edit, add reference page, a page, check citation, reference format. These are the steps in writing the review of quality literature review. So down the line, during our discussion, we were gathering theory summaries sheet, research study summaries, variable summary, literature matrix. All that we are trying to capture here. Choose the most common variables from your literature matrix. Put your area of focus in the center and then attach the variable extending out so that it helps you to articulate your research framework, theoretical framework, or a conceptual model or a research model. Gather your theory summaries. If you look at that area, so if you look at the diagram, so this is the area of focus, service quality. Let me talk about convenience, empathy, reliability, accessibility. Like this, when I am studying service quality of any company, I am trying to put the important variables, common variables, and I am putting in a pictorial format for my better understanding and in the helping me in the process of writing the literature review. And if you look at the this diagram, you can see here area of focus. I have identified 4 variables and a variable about empathy. So any theory pertaining to empathy, put that theory here, give that details here in your writing process, and an article which talks about pertaining to service quality, it talks about empathy factor. An article, next article which talks about empathy factor, those detail has to be put it here. So like this, we are trying to have you know a pictorial depiction of this review writing process that gives you an exact framework and it helps you in the model building of your research. And for make each variable subtopic in your outline, the variable summary becomes the introduction to the topic. Make sure that like subtopic like emotion and learning summary studies of, so I write a summary for that. Emotions and learning is that variable, which is a subtopic I consider here, and I am writing the summary. Studies of emotion and sports performance are very valuable and applicable to how the emotion influence learning. Under each subtopic, outline theory related to the subtopic from your theory summaries. Outline each research study related to subtopic, include its citation from your research review summary. Look at the examples here. So theory and the study. In the theory, I have given the background, and in the research study also I have given the background, what, who, and what is the findings also all about. ஒரு நிமிஷம் இன்னொரு 5 minutes இதில் ஆட் பண்ணும். So I was explaining about the subtopic emotions in learning, and we can see that the theory, how it has been recorded here, and the study also recorded here, like background what, background who, and what are the findings from that article has been very well captured here. So now the next stage is that we try to draft the paper. We try to review, analyze, and synthesize the important theories and also the previous research studies. We are, and according to the theme, whatever we capture from the pattern, we are trying to take those theme and variables together, and we support along with that theory and research findings. Begin with the body of the paper. Each subtopic is a new section of the body of the paper. Write your first subtopic in italics. The next line introduce the subtopic with the variable summary sentence. Support the subtopic with paragraphs about the theories and research. The research findings and the theories has to be simultaneously get supported on that particular subtopic from your, while you write and articulate your research outline. Conclude the section with the sentence. Summarize the importance of the. Once you have supported with the theory as well as the research support, then finally you try, what you are trying to do here is give your insight, summary of the topic or subtopic you have taken. Give a summary of that, how it is relevant to your research, how it is going to contribute, what is the gap, all that you are trying to do that. So conclusion, summarization, importance of the subtopic is very important, and likewise you can start the next topic. So in research, whenever when you use certain words like comparison, contrast, I've given you an example here. These words has to be appropriately used in your research. So also as, however, though, all that, these are the transitions when you compare and contrast your review of literature. And at the introduction, tell the readers what you're going to tell them. Begin outlining the first graph. Include a clever hook. State your area of focus here. Introduce variables. Connect them to your area of focus. That's the way you try to articulate your research review of literature paragraph. So first paragraph, what you do here is hook, something to make your readers want to read your analysis. A short account of an important moment that made you interested. That has to be finely articulated to grab the interest of the readers. I've given you an example. Second paragraph has to talk about the area of focus, or the research question has to be addressed in that second paragraph. I've given you an example here. third paragraph clearly introduces the general variables that are related to the area of focus and the general conclusions that have been identified in the literature, research literature. So I found four areas of study on this subject. First one is theories that support, sub-studies, research articles analyzed, other studies focus on the effects of, other looked at the importance of how it is significant. Lastly, another group of studies analyzed and how it is related to your area of focus. So let's have an introduction to review of literature. I've given you one example here. So theory 1, theory 2, variables are highlighted here. You can see the theory here, the variables. What are the variables? Like physiological side of emotions. That's a variable. And for example, theory 1, Zool, 2002, he has highlighted his theories. So like that. And the conclusion part, tell the readers what you told them. So begin outlining the first paragraph and write the conclusions. How the conclusion and a clever hook on the area of the topic. State area of focus, introduce variables and connect them to your area. Conclude them, finally conclude them. Summarize the various subtopics, discuss any gaps in the research that has to be addressed, because if you people ask you the new contribution, the gaps in the research is very, very important, and show how the study you will do fits or connects with the theory and previous study has. So the conclusion part, I've given you an example here, theme, subtopic, gap in research, and your research, how it is connected to your research has been very well articulated. And edit, when you review your research article, you're supposed to have a cohesion and clarity in your synthesis and articulation of information. Word choice is very important, sentence structure is very important, especially spelling, grammar, punctuations. We have a software called Grammarly software which will help you. Correct reference to theory, research, and correct citations in the APA format. Make sure that all citation match a reference on the reference page and vice versa. And I already mentioned the reference page should follow American Psychological Association guidelines format.